Hello, welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast. It's our transfer update show. Slightly later than usual today, but that's due to other work commitments. So I do apologise for that. But we've got lots to discuss once again. We'll be interacting with you guys in the live comments. We'll be putting some of your thoughts up on the screen for your fellow listeners or viewers to interact with too. Lots and lots to come once again on today's edition of the Transfer Update. Hello, good evening and welcome back to the Transfer Update Show brought to you by the Chronicles of a Gooner. As ever, I'm your host, Harry Symeou, and on today's edition, we've got plenty to discuss again. Lots of transfer stories doing the rounds in relation to Arsenal Football Club. Again, we're going to do our best to try and differentiate between the nonsense, between what could be genuine and all the other bits and pieces in between. So lots and lots to get through as always. I want to start off by saying I'm sorry, first of all, because over the last couple of days, I know that the streams have been a little bit, technically they've not been great in the sense of the internet connection hasn't always been stable. I can assure you that I'm doing everything within my power to try and put that right. I'm hoping that tonight's stream or today's stream will go without any issues. But if there is any sort of issues, please do let me know in the live comments. I know some people feel like they don't really want to sort of stick the knife in, but I actually want to know because I want to make this as good as possible, and I'm going to do my best to rectify that issue. I've been on the phone to my internet provider for a good few hours over the last couple of days, so fingers crossed we've gotten to the bottom of the issue. Hopefully, he says, as we start the stream. Probably be riddled with problems now. So I apologise in advance, but thank you all for bearing with me. Thank you for your support as always, and we are fast approaching 8,000 subscribers on YouTube. We're on 7.8k at the moment as I come into this stream, so please if you are new to the channel, please do hit that subscribe button, and if you're watching us via YouTube, whether you're new or not, hit that like button. You know the drill by now, and you know how important it is to the channel. Right, let's kick off by talking about today's big story, and that is that Barcelona have made an inquiry regarding the Arsenal right back Hector Bellerin, and that comes from the Catalan daily newspaper Sport. They say that an initial conversation has taken place between Edu and Barcelona's technical representative, but that the discussions did not last long, and that is apparently because the 20 to 25 million euro it would take to bring the right back to the Camp Nou is beyond Barcelona's financial capabilities right now. Now, Sport have quoted the figure that Arsenal would be looking for as 20 to 25 million. I honestly believe that if Arsenal were to move on Hector Bellerin, that they'd be looking for more than that. 20 to 25 million feels cheap to me. It doesn't feel like Hector Bellerin's sort of market value. And to back that up, I'll go over to his transfermarket.co.uk profile. And I know I always say it on every stream I do, these values that you get on Transfer Market, they're not gospel. They don't take into account a lot of things. But, on there, it gives you a starting point of £28.8 million, which suggests to me that rather than it being in the bracket of 20 to 25, it's more like 25 to 30 that Arsenal should be looking for Hector Bellerin. Me personally, I don't want to see him sold. I know we've spoken about it in recent days. We've spoken about the fact that because Arsenal have, Cedric, because Arsenal have Ainsley Maitland-Niles, whose form is consistently improving, that maybe we should consider moving on Hector Bellerin. And I've kind of toyed with that idea as well, over the last sort of couple of weeks where it's been discussed quite heavily by sort of various journalists, various outlets, etc. But I keep coming round to the point that if look at the clubs that are being linked with Hector Bellerin, and that should tell you all you need to know about the kind of player we're talking about. Barcelona, Paris Saint-Germain, Juventus. These are some of the most ambitious clubs in world football. If they want Hector Bellerin, then that tells me that to some degree, as our Arsenal fans and as a fan base, we're missing something when it comes to the Spaniard. I think there is a strong argument that since he obviously suffered that serious injury that he did, he's not been as sharp. He's not been as effective. He's got caught out a few times defensively. Um, I would argue that Bellerin has always sort of had a question mark next to his name when it comes to his defensive ability. I certainly think the fitness thing was an issue. I think it took him longer to get back to full sharpness than many of us, and including him, would have hoped. But we are seeing signs lately that the best of Hector Bellerin is just around the corner. And if you do sell Hector Bellerin, and I'm not making the case that Hector Bellerin is world class, because I don't necessarily think he is. I just guess that if these clubs are interested in Hector Bellerin, it says to me that there is something more to Hector Bellerin than what the general Arsenal fan sees. And we have to take this opportunity, I think, at a point where there is supposedly a lot of interest in him, to step back and take stock of what Hector Bellerin actually brings to this side. He brings, in my opinion, a level of experience that you're rarely going to find in a 25-year-old, given just the number of games that he's played. Um, you know, he brings an ability to get forward, and I agree that in the final third, his final ball isn't always the right one. Sometimes his end product leaves a lot to be desired. However, he can improve in that department. I think he's got excellent recovery pace when needed. And I really, really do believe this. I really do think that under Mikel Arteta, his positioning has improved, and I expect it to improve further. Now, again, I'm not beating the Hector Bellerin drum as if to say he's the best right back in the world or that he's anywhere near that. But I guess what my point is that for these clubs to be interested, there's got to be more to Hector Bellerin than meets the eye. Now, some would argue, and I'm sure this is an argument you probably hear, from many, is that Hector Bellerin's sort of activism outside of football makes him an attractive proposition from a marketing perspective to some of these clubs, and I do agree with that. But that doesn't mean that he's a crap footballer, and that's the only reason they're interested. I just think that, yes, if Arsenal are really, really desperate to raise funds and an offer of 30 to 35 million comes in, I think Arsenal have to consider it. I really do believe that. I think they need to consider it. But I'm not quite sure what my final decision would be on that. I guess for the time being, we're a little bit unsure about Cedric still, because we haven't seen a great deal of him, let's be honest. Ainsley Maitland-Niles seems to be better when he plays at left wing back for some reason, which is strange because he is obviously a right-footed player. But we've seen him given that license when Arsenal have possession, when Tierney switches over to that left-hand side. We've seen him given that license to make that run infield into the midfield and join in with the play. And that has really benefited Maitland-Niles, I think, stepping inside onto his stronger foot. So for that reason, I feel like Hector Bellerin is still probably the best option that we've got at right back at this present moment in time. Now, is Mikel Arteta willing to sacrifice, and rely on Maitland-Niles and Cedric if it means that selling Bellerin will get him, for example, the central midfield player that he wants? I don't know. That remains to be seen. We're going to have to see what happens. We're going to have to see how this plays out. But it's my understanding at the moment that the bids that have come in for Hector Bellerin, or maybe not formal bids, but the offers that have sort of been made informally, if you like, to Arsenal Football Club with regards to Hector Bellerin have been below what the club feel he is worth. And as I pointed out a little bit earlier on in the programme, according to Transfer Market, his value at the moment stands at 28.8 million. Sport, the Catalan Daily, they report that Barca feel like 20 to 25 is too much. So how the hell are they going to meet our price? Now, could a deal be done in the shape of a swap deal? Maybe. But, who do you want from Barcelona necessarily? That is attainable. Who do you want from Barcelona? Everyone's going to say Messi. But who do you want from Barcelona that's actually attainable that you could see coming the other way in a swap deal. It's a difficult one, isn't it? It's a really tough one. So the interest is there, not only from PSG now, but from Barcelona too. But obviously, if a deal is going to be done, it's very, very clear that it's not going to be a cash deal, certainly not for the amount anyway that Arsenal are looking for. So I think this one is a no-go. I don't think that Arsenal are going to entertain this. I wouldn't want Arsenal to entertain this at the prices that are being quoted. So I think we move on. But I caveat that with the point that if and only if a bid comes in that would allow Arsenal to go and do something else, something that Mikel Arteta feels is more of a priority, then we have to consider it. We have to look at it, and we have to think about sort of the potential of what bringing that money in could mean for this Arsenal side and for the development and the progress under Mikel Arteta. Let's come over to some of your live comments on the subject. Be interested to hear what some of you guys have to say with regards to Hector Bellerin. Over 150 of you guys watching at the moment. So if you haven't already, please do smash that like button. It's really, really important. Just checking in on the likes at the moment. I know I keep talking about it recently, but we've seen the benefit of it. So I'm going to keep beating that drum. 31 likes so far, but there is, as I said, over 150 of you watching. So let's try and get that up to 100 at least. Thank you very much. Right. ASN says, hey, mate, 20 million for Bellerin. Really? That can't be right. So another person who's surprised at the quote that is being sort of, or that is being reported by Sport. Now, it is worth noting that that's not what Arsenal have set the bar at. That's not what Arsenal have set the price at. That is purely sort of what Sport are saying. It is the price for Hector Bellerin. But Arsenal understandably want more than that. And therefore, it seems like, sorry, just going to adjust this. There we go. It seems like Arsenal are not willing to entertain that kind of offer, which is, of course, good news from our perspective. Right, let's see what else we've got here in terms of your comments. MB79UK says, Arsenal always sell cheap, though. It does feel like that sometimes. It does feel like Arsenal always cave in when it comes to selling prices. It does. But, you know, I think that Arsenal have to make a stand here. And I think Arsenal will make a stand here. Look, I'll say it again. If the right money comes in, if the right bid is on the table, I do think Arsenal will consider it. But that's all. Consider it. I don't think they'll 100% want to sell Hector Bellerin. I don't think he's a player that Arsenal actively want to move on. But according to David Ornstein on the latest sort of Athletic podcast, he was saying that if an agreement can be reached amicably that would see the player embark on a new challenge, then he's not sure that Bellerin would necessarily be opposed to making that move. So there is scope for a deal maybe to be done, but the conditions have to be right for everybody. The conditions have to be right for Bellerin. The conditions have to be right for Arsenal. And the conditions obviously have to be right for whichever club it is that's going to shell out for the Spaniard in order to bring him to their club. Samuel says Hector Bellerin is worth £40 million. I would say that is a little bit excessive, but again, that's just my opinion, and understandably, you've come to your own conclusion, and that's absolutely fine. I respect your view. I just think for me that 40 million is a little bit excessive for Hector Bellerin, given the sort of fitness troubles we've seen him have to contend with in recent times. Milton says Bellerin is quality. He should be at least, he's put 30. He's corrected that in the next comment. He should be at least 30 million. Bellerin is better than Symeou, mate. HICM says, I totally agree with you about Hector. Harry at Marble Halls TV says Bellerin hasn't reached his potential. Even before his injury, he had declined. So plenty of people out there who are not sure about Bellerin, are still on the fence as to whether or not he has, achieved sort of the levels that he should have achieved. Marble Horse TV clearly feels like he hasn't hit that height yet. But that's not to say he can't do it. And I feel like in a side managed by Mikel Arteta, a side that we expect to be far more organised defensively, far more sort of robust in that sense, I think you will see less scenarios in which Hector Bellerin is caught out, less scenarios in which Arsenal concede goals because their fullbacks have both been caught too far up the field. And that in itself, I think, would improve Hector Bellerin. So, of course, we've got to wait and see sort of how he fares over the course of the next sort of 12 to 18 months. But to say that he's not reached his potential, I don't think that's an unfair comment. I think it is a fair comment, and I think you can make plenty of arguments that would back up what you are saying there. Fergus, big hello to Fergus from the Guns and Yellow Ribbons podcast. If you haven't checked that out, please do. It's a great show. Give them a subscribe, and you can tune into Fergus and his brilliant team as they talk all things Arsenal as well. He says defensively he's poor. He's lost a yard or two of pace, and his crossing is appalling. I certainly agree with you on the end product thing. I think that that has been an issue for Hector Bellerin for quite some time, and I feel like it's an area that he certainly needs to improve in. Just picking up some more of your comments again. Apologies if I miss some of those. It's just there is a good number of them coming through live, so I'm trying to pick up as many as I possibly can. Orthan says Bellerin just needs to improve two sides of his game, crossing and positioning. That's all I guess he needs to make him good. So yeah, I think there are certainly two areas that most people would agree are areas of development for Hector Bellerin, areas in which he needs to improve. Whether that will come sooner rather than later remains to be seen. Fingers crossed it does, though. Top Techers has a question. He says, do you think that even if we get Partey with the Bellerin sale, it weakens us? Cedric is not on the same level as Ainsley Maitland-Niles or Hecky B. I do think that if we lost Bellerin, it weakens us in the right back position. But if that enables us to go and get Thomas Partey, which strengthens us in the middle of the park, is that taken away from one area in order to boost another? And in boosting another, you're boosting what I believe to be the most important part of the pitch, which is the heart of your midfield, the engine room of your side. So in that sense, if we were to get Partey in and we lost Bellerin, is the drop-off between Bellerin and, say, Cedric or Ainsley Maitland-Niles that big? Is it so big that it's not worth doing that trade in order to land Thomas Partey? I'm not sure. I think that the drop in quality between a Bellerin and a Cedric or a Bellerin and a Maitland-Niles isn't that big. I really do believe that. And I like Bellerin and I love the way he represents the club. I love everything he stands for. I think he's fantastic. But if it meant we'd get Thomas Partey in and we had to make do with Cedric and Maitland-Niles for the time being, I think I'd be all right with that. I really do. I think I'd be all right with it. And it's a great question, and one that I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say on as well. Brilliant question. Thank you so much. Let's move on. Couple more comments on Bellerin and then we'll turn over to another topic. Jeff says, I personally think we should sell Bellerin to fund Partey. So that is very much an opinion that many of you share at the moment. Tony Christensen says, we have great options at right back and we need to get some centre midfielders in. So sell Bellerin. It's the best move. So yeah, it seems to be like, it seems to be that a lot of people feel like if it was to allow us to go and make that marquee central midfield signing, then it's probably worth doing. And I feel like I've talked myself out of my own original opinion here. I was very much open to selling Hector Bellerin a few days ago. All this interest, as I said, has made me sit back a little bit, take stock. And then I sort of came to the conclusion, well, actually, it would be a step backwards because we're trying to improve the squad, not sort of weaken ourselves in one area to help another. But the reality is the position we find ourselves in at the moment financially and as a football club with obviously, People will sit here and say, oh, we're Arsenal, we'll always attract players. And to a degree, I agree with that. But you got to be realistic here. You really have got to be realistic. Um, you've got to understand where we are. We're not in the Champions League. I don't think many outside of the football club would fancy us to qualify for the Champions League next season either. I still think in people's opinions, the top four is probably going to be a Liverpool, City, United, Chelsea sort of group in whatever order. I don't know exactly what order, but I think that makes it difficult to attract players. Yeah, to a degree, we're Arsenal and we'll always have a certain pool and all of that, but to an extent, it makes our job in terms of trying to bring people in more difficult. And based on that reason, I feel like we can't be snobs. We can't, not snobs, that's probably the wrong word. We can't be so self-righteous. We can't be like, well, we're not getting rid of Bellerin, but we should be getting Partey as well. The reality is we're not in that bracket at the minute. The reality is we haven't got the clout to do something like that, to force or to be able to bring in someone like Thomas Partey to force that deal through without moving people on, without raising additional transfer funds. We're struggling. It's no secret. We're not the only ones, but it seems to feel like because of the position we've been in over the last few years, that we're going to find it harder than most actually to get out of this sort of, this rut that we've been in over the last couple of seasons where we failed to make, or last few seasons where we failed to make the Champions League. We've had some really embarrassing results. We've not performed with anywhere near the level of consistency that we should. So again, I've gone all around the houses, which is what happens when you talk to yourself for half an hour or so. But as much as I, in an ideal world, want to keep Hector Bellerin, I would have to consider it. I would have to consider the interest from Barcelona, from Paris Saint-Germain, from Juventus, if you're to believe some of those reports as well, if it meant that we could really kick on a level and strengthen what is, in my opinion, the most important part of the team, which is in the centre of the midfield. Right, let's move on to another topic, and I want to discuss David Luiz, somebody who I was going to say divides opinion, but I think most people are anti-David Luiz, if I'm honest. I'm not necessarily one of those. I am someone who, acknowledges that the player has shortcomings, that the player has faults, that the player makes mistakes. But I also think he brings a lot of good to this Arsenal side. He brings a lot of leadership. He brings a lot of character. He's someone who does take responsibility, who does come out in front of the cameras, even when he's made the mistake, even when the knives are out for him. I really like that in David Luiz, and his teammates speak about him in a glowing way, in the sense of they really admire him as a man, as a player. They admire his experience, what he's achieved in the game, and that makes him an important part of Mikel Arteta's dressing room. So we've kind of been rocked a little bit from the news that obviously just a few days before the Premier League season is due to kick off again, that David Luiz could be out of the first game of the season. Now, of course, we travel to Fulham on Saturday, and we're going to be bringing you a preview show where we'll be focusing on that game solely in the next couple of days. We're going to wait for Mikel Arteta's press conference before doing that, so we can sort of have a better understanding of who's available, who's not, who's quarantined, who's training well, who's not. So, as I said, we're going to wait till that press conference is done before we sort of go into a deep sort of preview as to what we think is going to happen on Saturday. But missing David Luiz, I think, would be a big blow. Now, William Saliba is an option. Gabriel is an option. Rob Holding is an option. Rob Holding, who, of course, we thought was definitely on his way to Newcastle United, and then that's not really happened. Well, it's not happened, has it? And it seems like Arsenal have kind of sort of done a bit of a U-turn on that. So we've got to wait and see what happens there. But I feel like for the time being, Arsenal are holding on to him because of these reasons. Because Mikel Arteta is probably worried about some of the fitness issues that he's got within the squad at the moment. This pre-season has been a complete and utter mess, and that's through no fault of Mikel Arteta's, no fault of Arsenal's. It's just the circumstances. Everybody's in the same boat. Some teams have had better preparations than others, but sort of widely speaking and overall, it's been a really, really tough time for everybody. So we're going to have to sort of wait and see who's available. And I'm sure the team that you're going to see on Saturday is not necessarily going to be the side that Mikel Arteta will be looking to use moving forward. But David Luiz missing from the heart of that defence, I think, is a big blow. I think Kieran Tierney plays there. I think he plays as the left-sided centre-back. I think Rob Holding probably plays. And then if David Luiz is unavailable, is it Saliba? Is it Gabriel? I don't think it will be Socrates. I know he hasn't joined Napoli yet, but I feel like his exit is edging ever closer. So I don't think he'll play a part. But the question is, do you go Gabriel? Do you go Saliba? Do you go both? Are you concerned about the fitness of either of them? We know that Saliba's been training with the club for longer than Gabriel has. So does that put him in a better position? Even though Gabriel's a more experienced player overall, I don't know. It's a real ball ache. It's a real issue. And it's something that I think comes as a massive blow to us, sort of heading into the first weekend of the season. David Ornstein has said that Lewis is a major doubt with a neck injury that could rule him out for an extended period. Now, that would be a real fucking problem. That would be a disaster, in my opinion, for this Arsenal side, who in recent times, I know, look, David Luiz makes his mistakes. I know David Luiz is not, the ideal centre-back, but I think you've got to take on board that he has been key in this defensive improvement. He's a leader. He's very vocal. Clearly far more effective when he plays as part of a back three than he is as part of a back four. So, I think it comes as a disappointment. And fingers crossed he is available. And if he's not available for Saturday, I really hope it's not an injury that's going to see him miss an extended period, as Ornstein claims it might, because that is going to be a huge blow to Arsenal, and I wonder if that will prevent us moving out some of the dead wood, as everybody calls them, some of the centre backs that we think are surplus to requirements. Will we pause and hold off moving some of those players out if David Luiz is going to be out injured for an extended period of time? Who knows? Let me know your thoughts in the comments as well. Coming towards the end of today's stream, going to pick up a couple of your questions and comments before we lock off. Just another quick reminder that if you haven't, please do smash that like button on YouTube. It is so important. Let's check in where we are at the moment. There's over 300 of you tuned into us live via the multiple platforms. We've only got 77 likes, guys. Let's get it up to 120. Let's get up to 120. So in 3, 2, 1, smash that like button, guys. Please do. It's so important. And just a quick reminder before we go on to pick out those last couple of questions. Here is how you can become a patron of the Chronicles of a Gooner. You can now support the podcast for just £3 a month. That will give you access to exclusive content that only patrons will be able to access. You'll get priority on our fans show. So we'll be running those every couple of weeks where you, the fans, the listeners, get to call in, get to have your say live on air on one of these streams and put your views across to those that follow the channel. You'll also get priority when submitting questions for our expert guests who will be joining us throughout the course of the season. And after 3 months of membership, you will receive a gift from me. You also get a direct DM line into me if you wish to ever talk football or anything else for that matter. Feel free to drop me a message, and of course patrons have that ability to send me one directly. So looking forward to seeing more of you join up. A big thank you and a big welcome actually to those of you who have joined in recent weeks. There's been an influx of you as the sort of viewership has increased, so a massive thank you to every single one of you for your support so far. Right, let's pick out a couple more questions, couple more points, and then we will wrap it up for today. Akshay says, if Emmy is sold and Areola comes in on loan. Of course, Arsenal been linked with the Paris Saint-Germain goalkeeper Areola. Apparently, he's been offered to the Gunners as a potential replacement for Emi Martinez. Then doesn't a £25 million bid for Bellerin definitely make Partey affordable? Yeah, look, it could be the case that Arsenal need to do a couple of deals in order to raise those funds. It all comes down to how much Arsenal and Mikel Arteta want Thomas Partey. Do they see him as so valuable, so important that they would be willing to move on a couple of players to raise those funds? Do they see it as being worth sort of slightly, I'm not going to say downgrading, but losing one of our options in another area of the field, whether that's Bellerin at right back, whether that's Martinez as a number 2, in order to get that deal done? How much do Arsenal want it? And I've been saying this throughout the summer. If Arsenal really want Thomas Partey, they've got to go for broke. They've got to put that money on the table. I do believe that they will go back in for him between now and the end of the window, but it is dependent. It is very much dependent on the sales that Arsenal are able to do between now and the end of the window. Fingers crossed they get some done, they get some players out the door, they get some money in through the door, and they're able to make that offer, trigger the players' release clause, because as we know, Atletico are working very hard behind the scenes to tie Thomas Partey down to a new deal, which would see that clause increased dramatically, which in my opinion would rule us out of the running for Thomas Partey. So let's see what happens on that. What else have we got here? Let's see. Jay Bowling says, Harry, do we take a gamble and go for broke with Saliba and Gabriel starting together? Oh, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because, you know, admittedly, I'm not a big follower of the French league. I haven't watched an awful lot of either of those two players in action. If you had asked me at the start of the window if I wanted Gabriel to come in, I would have said no, because I didn't know anything about him. I know a little bit about him, having sort of looked into him with quite a bit of detail, given that he looked set to join Arsenal for a while before it actually happened. But will I take the risk in bringing both of them into the side? No, I think Holding is a safer bet. I feel like Tierney is a safer bet at left centre back, and then I feel like it's one or the other. I'm probably leaning slightly towards William Saliba just because he's had that extra sort of training time with Arsenal. But other than that, yeah, it's a really, really difficult one. But for me, the question is, would I play both of them? No. No, I wouldn't. Not going into a game like that. Lijo Jacob says, this is the final question. Who would you play in the midfield for the game versus Fulham? For me, it's got to be Xhaka and Danny Ceballos, providing he is fit enough. Now, we know he was training with Real Madrid, joined Arsenal a little bit late as well. So let's see. Let's see what happens with that. But that would be my ideal midfield. But I've still got this nagging feeling in the back of my mind that Mohamed Elneny may get the nod instead of him. But we'll have to wait and see. Again, as I said, we'll be waiting for Mikel Arteta's press conference before we do our preview show so that we can give you guys as much of an informed decision as possible. Or informed sort of prediction as possible, I should say, not decision. It's a prediction, isn't it? Mikel Arteta's the one that makes the decisions, not me. Big shout out to Akshay as well. It says, great stuff, Harry. Let me just say, there's a lot of Symeou fans amongst the Arsenal faithful in Mumbai. Thank you so much, mate. Thank you for your support. Thank you to everyone in Mumbai for your support. I can see on the analytics that there's lots of Indian-based viewers and listeners, and I'm really, really grateful. And thank you for your continued support. Right, that brings us to the end of today's live stream. We'll be back tomorrow with another one. Hopefully, we'll be bringing you some more positive transfer updates and hopefully some to do with players that Arsenal could be bringing in rather than always talking about those going out, which it feels like we're doing a lot in the last few days. Not that that's a bad thing. There are a lot that we want to see out the door, but it feels like at this moment in time, the only interest is coming in those players that we're sort of a little bit iffy about letting go. Subscribe if you haven't already. Like the stream as well. Leave us a comment if you're watching this back on playback. And if you're listening via the audio, leave us a review. Until next time, take care, enjoy your evenings, and stay safe. Ciao.